Okay. Vice President Sara Duterte said if it's not required, she will not attend the impeachment trial. Baka daw ma-intimidate. Ayaw niyang ma-intimidate ang mga senador, no? I mean,
Okay
I'm
naman yan.
praising it. But go ahead.
So that's her opinion, but I don't think that would be the case. But she's entitled to her opinion. Having said that, there are only two situations wherein in criminal proceedings wherein the accused is required to attend: arraignment and when he or she needs to be identified by a witness. Now, under the impeachment rules, arraignment can be done either in person or through counsel. So hindi na siya kailangan doon kung ayaw niya. Hindi namin siya pipilitin kung ayaw niya. Pero kung kailangan siyang ituro ng isang testigo para i-identify, yun lamang siguro yung sitwasyon na kailangan siyang mag-attend. Unless his lawyer will concede na, oo, aminin na namin na siya na yan. Hindi na kailangan i-identify pa. Pwede rin yan. So in those two instances, it can be dispensed with by her lawyers and can be done by her lawyers in lieu of her presence. Unless, again, Karen, there's a third exception, she decides to testify. Like the late former Chief Justice Corona, who decided to testify. In which case, she has to appear to be testify, and she has to be there again during cross-examination. She cannot just attend, read a statement, and say, "I refuse to be questioned." Her testimony will not be admissible if it is not subjected to cross-examination.
Okay, so in a regular committee hearing, the Senate or the lower house will invite, right? It's supposed to be in aid of legislation, and she has appeared in the lower house and even in the Senate. But can an impeachment court order her to appear?
Yes. Karen, the impeachment court will not issue an invite. At the first instance, the impeachment court will issue a subpoena. Hindi na invite o testigo kailangan mag-attend Wala naman tong pwedeng hindi, pwedeng oo. Impeachment court to, korte ito, hindi ito hearing. Nadadaan ka muna sa invite, tapos 2 invite, 3 invite, pag hindi sumagot, subpoena, pag hindi sumunod, warrant of arrest. Wala nang ganun-ganon. Subpoena agad ang i-issue dahil hindi ka naman tatawagin pag hindi kailangan. Hindi ito pwedeng hindi, pwedeng oo. Walang ganun sa impeachment court at sa trial. In fact, the compulsory processes power of the Senate and the House were actually lifted from the compulsory processes power of courts, including the issuance of subpoena as well as warrants of arrest.
All right. Now, what's interesting about this case being that it's this is the first vice president to be impeached, is what happens if, I'll give some scenarios, and it could be analytical on your part. If she chooses to resign, she said in the press con, malayo pa yan. But let's say it does happen. What happens next?
If she resigns, there are two things the impeachment court can decide on. One, dismiss it, very much like what they did in the case of Ombudsman Gutierrez. If you remember, Karen, March 23, the impeachment complaint was filed. The Senate adjourned on March 26. They set the trial on May 19, but Mercy Gutierrez resigned on April 29. So when the Senate resumed, they simply dismissed the case and said she resigned already. However, Karen, that's only one penalty of impeachment. The other penalty for impeachment is absolute perpetual disqualification to hold public office.
Yeah.
Now, it will be decided upon by the impeachment court because I'm sure both parties will have different position on this. Will have a different position on this. Tutuloy pa ba o hindi?
Oo.
I leave that to the impeachment court. That is one of the things. For example, as presiding officer, if I will be presiding over it, I will throw to the body and will not decide on. Because that is.
In other words, Senate President, what you're saying is, if hypothetically the one accused resigns, being a public official, an elected official, being the vice president, the impeachment court can still make a decision. Can it still make a decision on the accusations against the official?
It is possible, Karen, and it can be decided upon as such by the impeachment court. Hindi ko papangunahan. Ayokong sasabihin na yun ang gagawin. Pero isang bagay yan na pwedeng pagpasyahan ng impeachment court. Because once an impeachment complaint is filed before any court, or a complaint is filed before any court, it is under the jurisdiction of that court already. Not by mere whim of one side or one party will it be decided upon. Porkit resign, hindi dapat dismiss nyo na to, wala na to. Hindi. Hindi porkit nagbago yung Kongreso, halimbawa, at sabihin nila, ay, ayaw na namin, wini-withdraw na namin yung charges. They can ask for that, but it's still the impeachment court that will decide that already. Not again by their mere whim or desire. Will it be will their will be followed? It will be followed. What we will follow will be what the impeachment court will decide on that matter.
Because there's also an issue if a certain official, that's why, because an impeachment is political in nature, right, SP? If the official is actually fit to hold public office, is that a part of the articles actually?
Quite frankly, Karen, I haven't read it. It's this thick. It's about 5 to 6 inches thick, including the annexes.
Okay.
I haven't finished glossing over all of it in its entirety. Today, we will be furnishing media, and the members of the Senate were furnished over the weekend. Members of the media, via our website, will be furnished a copy of the actual impeachment. It's about 5 to 6 inches thick. I'm not sure if that's in there, Karen. I'm not sure under what category it will fall under too, because some impeachment grounds are bribery, treason, graft and corruption, other high crimes, and betrayal of the public trust. So I don't know which under which subcategory it would fall. It would fall under, but I haven't read it, Karen. So I'm sorry.
Because balikan natin during the time of former President Estrada, you were still in the lower house, right?
Yes.
You were still a young congressman then. And you were actually with the opposition for a long period of time in the lower house. I was
minority leader for a time, Karen.
Yes, you were minority leader during that time. And at this, so there was a walkout during ERAP's time, but it was actually the Sandigan Bayan when he was convicted of plunder that prevented him from holding public office. Is this correct? No, my memory is right, SP?
Yes, but that conviction was not did not become final.
Yeah.
It was appealed. Remember, Karen, the former
and then
president,
GMA pardoned him.
and the former president in the elections that followed was able to run.
Yeah.
For president still, with Vice President Binay as his vice presidential candidate. So they were able to run in the 2016 elections.
And I think the reason I'm asking this as an ordinary citizen, this does not pertain to ERAP or Sara Duterte. It pertains to no one. Is when an impeachment is brought against an official, it would mean that there are accusations that public official has broken the law, right? Has broken the Constitution, or is not fit to be in office. Why is it that they can still run? I think it's supposed to make the public space safer, right? And yet they're back in office, which is hence the era. That's one.
But I think in the case of former President Estrada, again, the impeachment court was not concluded. He was not, the penalty of absolute perpetual disqualification was not imposed upon him.
Yeah.
The Sandigan Bayan did, but that decision, I believe, did not become final. And even if there is a pending case, a pardon can be issued if the accused withdraws the appeal. And in that case, I think former President Estrada withdrew his appeal, if I'm not mistaken. It was an issue of kaliwaan to, baka mamaya withdraw ko yung appeal, biglang hindi ka magpardon.
Yes. So, if hypothetically an elected official is impeached and there's a decision for perpetual disqualification, can a president pardon or actually, how do you say that, SP, actually change that decision?
That's a good question, Karen.
Right?
As far as I know, the pardoning power of the president applies to crimes. And an impeachment court, as we said, is in a class of its own. I will take the position further that it's not even reviewable by the Supreme Court. You cannot go to the Supreme Court on appeal and appeal the decision, the political decision of the impeachment court. So this will be unique. It'll be interesting how the Supreme Court will decide a case such as that. Should the president, the future president or incumbent president decide to pardon a convicted impeached officer?
because it goes against the very essence of why you go through the motions and the effort to impeach a public official, right? I mean,
Okay.
logically speaking.
The logic of pardon too is that the person has been rehabilitated. Remember,
Yeah, but that's
our
a
penal
person who won't like hold public office.
yes, but our penal system is not punitive. Our penal system, the concept behind it is rehabilitative. So it is possible after the span of a certain amount of time that the person has been rehabilitated. Hence the power of the president to pardon a person convicted of a crime. Now, I'm not sure again if that same principle will apply. Is impeachment, meaning the removal and the imposition of the penalty of absolute perpetual disqualification, a rehabilitative process too, very much like our criminal justice system? But by its very nature, it's not part of the criminal justice system. There is no penalty in impeachment of imprisonment. The only penalty is removal from office and absolute perpetual disqualification, administrative at best.
Okay. Now, people talk about just how much it costs to actually have an impeachment trial. So if this is going to go on every day, we're talking about, are you there? If I remember the ERAP impeachment correctly, was it running 6 hours?
Roughly.
Roughly, no. And Corona, how long were you running a day?
Same.
Roughly 6 hours. That's 6 hours every day, Monday to Friday. You don't have a
Thursday.
trial. Monday to Thursday. Then you don't have a trial Friday to Sunday. So babalik, Monday to Thursday, Monday to Thursday. Just offhand, do you remember how much it cost the Corona? How much that was?
I'm quite hands-on, Karen, with respect to the Senate building since I became Senate President. So
Yeah.
I'll break it down for you.
Okay.
Electricity and utility-wise, no additional cost.
Okay.
Because, as I said, in our last 2 days, for example, we stayed there until 11 p.m. Air conditioning is centralized, so it will cover all of the rooms of the Senate. Ganun pa rin yun. Yung plenary namin, although 3 p.m. ang session, bukas yung ilaw nun, bukas yung aircon nun, hindi naman pinapatay yun. So electricity and utility-wise, no additional cost. Whether there's an impeachment or not, we conduct committee hearings in the morning, then session in the afternoon. With respect to man hours or additional personnel, perhaps some additional legal consultants. On the part of the Senate itself, each member of the Senate has enough room to hire additional consultants to advise them with respect to the impeachment. So wala rin dagdag yun. Kailangan namin magpagawa ng ilang furniture at kagamitan. Alam mo yung witness box, Karen?
Oo
Yung
nga.
luma, malamang inanay na yon. So papagawa
Oo,
kami ng ganun.
oo. Yeah.
Hindi naman kamahalan yun. Hindi naman abutin ng milyon siguro yun. Magpapagawa kami ng robe. Hindi rin naman siguro abutin ng milyon yun.
Oo.
Yung session namin mangyayari kapag ka-recess. Kapag ka-recess o may session, probably I'll present it before the impeachment court, Karen. Siguro morning yung... Dati kasi hapon yung 1 to sawa yung impeachment. Tapos may cap yung time ng session. Gusto ko sigurong baliktarin.
Oo.
Cap yung trial, tapos 1 to sawa yung session. Para may trabaho pa rin kami magawa, Karen, in connection with our main function, which is legislation. So we can probably do 8 to 2 or 9
That's a
to
good idea. Yeah.
And then 3 p.m., we conduct regular sessions as usual. And we can stay as late as we want to doing our regular work. Para naman hindi maapektuhan at maantala yun. There are still important pieces of legislation, national or local, that we need to pass and pour some time into. And not just this. So, cost-wise, hindi ganun kamahal, Karen. I don't see ballooning I don't need to ask for additional money from DBM. No. We can work with the impeachment given our budget for 2025, although we did not foresee this.
Oh. So is it right to say that when the trial happens, you will be at the new building?
No, Karen. I just got the report 2 weeks ago. The earliest we can transfer, and we'd be lucky to have that, would be December 2026. The latest would be December 2027.
Yeah.
The reason, Karen, is the building never had, from the beginning, since 2012, a detailed architectural and engineering design, what they call DAED. That's why when I assumed the office, I kept on asking, how much will it take to finish it? How much do we need to finish it? How long will it take? Nobody could answer me because there was no DAED. The diet was only completed under my watch in December of 2024. So now I could confidently answer you already. It'll be finished at the earliest if we're lucky, meaning weather permitting and everything, supplies arriving on time, December 2026, at the latest December 2027. For sure. For the 21st Congress, we will be
Pwede
there
na.
already. Yes.
Oo. And you are still a senator in the 21st Congress because
Depends, Karen, if I will run and if I will decide to run and win, or I may just decide not to run anymore.
no wait,
It
but
depends.
you aren't you're a senator
Until
until 2028.
Till 2028, yes.
Okay. So
But I would rather, Karen, that we transfer na 2028 kasi isang taon na lang yung magagraduate eh. Isang taon na lang yung hindi tatakbo. Sayang naman yung gagastusin sa opisina, renovate just to stay there for a year. We can give it to the next set already of senators who will run.
So technically, that Senate floor has witnessed four impeachment trials. Well, kay Presiditas, nagkaroon ba technically ng trial?
No, she resigned before and then the Senate dismissed it.
Yeah, so technically, it's a witness to 3 trials, but nakaabot doon 4.
Which I think nag-a-apply, Karen, na pumalit sa amin. I hope I'm not preempting anything.
Go on.
Dismiss lang naman yan. Na nag-a-apply na pumalit sa amin sa GSIS paglipat namin COMELEC.
Comelec. I remember.
Because they need a hall too.
Yeah.
Actually, it's perfect for them, to be frank about it. They can break out into smaller divisions too, their committee rooms. I mean, to be fair, it's minimum na galaw ang gagawin nila ron.
Okay. Now, before we go to a quick break, because we have to go to a gap, is being a senator, okay, some have said, dapat the Senate should tackle it right away. Dapat mag-special session, etc. But let's talk about the fact. February 10, campaign season starts. May election. Technically speaking, as a judge, won't it influence a senator, given the influence of
The elections.
vice president, right? Is it advantageous or disadvantageous essentially for the function of a judge to be hearing the impeachment of Vice President Duterte before an election?
It can cut both ways, Karen. However, I think it's advantageous in the sense that at least this will be a valid election issue, at least for members of the Senate who are running, or those who are running for the Senate, and members of the House, or those who are running for a House seat.
Okay.
What will you do if you win? What's your viewpoint? What's your point of view? Will you acquit? Yes, but you haven't even read it. You'll convict, but you haven't even heard the evidence as well. It'll be a nice election issue, at least in one aspect of the elections for these two positions. It'll be a valid election issue. But let me add another point, Karen. I forgot to mention earlier. Special session has been mentioned by several people. The Constitution is specific, Karen. The Senate President, in consultation with the minority and majority leaders and with the consent of the Speaker, can hold special sessions, meaning the House and the Senate. And there are specified instances. Hiwa-hiwalay na provision ng Constitution to. 1, in order to tackle urgent legislation. Again, sui generis ang impeachment court, hindi siya legislation.
You're right.
2, in order to vote for the Vice President in case the Vice President is removed or becomes incapacitated. So, kasama na ron na na-impeach siguro siya, kailangan mag-elect ng Vice President ang Kongreso. If the President becomes incapacitated by a majority vote of the members of his or her cabinet, the Senate has to convene too. Number 4, to canvass and proclaim President and Vice President in an election. And number 5, automatically when martial law is declared and the habeas corpus is suspended. We have to convene. Now, specific instances yun,
it's
bilang
so specific.
ng pagpalit ng Vice President.
Yeah.
Bakit hindi sinabi, Karen, na kapag kami nabiting impeachment complaint, dapat mag-special session kayo? Wala namang sinabi. Again, I do not want to treat this impeachment complaint against the Vice President as a special case. It is not special from my point of view. The Senate should not view it as special and different too. The Vice President's impeachment complaint is not sui generis. It is like any other impeachment complaint. I intend to treat it as such, not treating it any differently from how the Senate has treated other previous impeachment complaints in accordance with our rules and the Constitution.
Yeah, very good point. And just a little bit also is you have Bill Clinton, right? SP, the US president. He was impeached in the lower house. I believe it was obstruction of justice. It got to the Senate. He was acquitted there, but he was running the country normally, even if he was impeached in the lower house.
But
Okay.
one last thing,
Go
this
on.
is impeachment is a constitutional process. People have been talking as if it's something to be scared about, something to run away from,
Yeah.
something to be concerned about. They should not. Impeachment is a process to hold officers in government, high officials in government, accountable to the people. It is a legitimate, valid proceeding and mechanism to do that.
Yeah.
It should not be frowned upon. We should not be scared of it. We should not be concerned about it. We should not run away from it. This is something that we have to embrace as a process to hold officers accountable. No ifs, no buts about it. So we don't have to change our daily routine, really. You can watch, but we don't have to change our daily routines and act differently, because this is simply part and parcel of what the House and or the Senate can and should do, depending on the circumstances and the times.
So we're talking about the rules, the process that has to be drafted before the impeachment trial actually begins. And I have, this is quite interesting because we don't have enough time to talk about the other issues. I do hope to have you back on the right sizing bill, for example. That takes a whole other show. Ask you this, interestingly, in history. When former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo came into power as president, she appointed a vice president. And my memory is correct, right? Yes. It was Gingona, Senator Gingona. What does the Constitution say? And I understand if you want to be careful about this because you are the Senate president at this point. But what does the Constitution say if a vice president is impeached and convicted? Who becomes the vice president?
There is no succession in terms of rank. So the president is number one, the vice president is number two, the Senate president is number three, the speaker is number four.
Yeah.
There is no succession. Hindi papalit ang Senate president sa vice president kapag ka na-impeach, natanggal, nag-resign, naging incapacitated. Hindi rin papalit ang speaker sa Senate president dahil hindi naman siya miyembro ng Senado. Ang palitan lang, ang succession applies only to the vice president becoming president and vice versa. So pag may nangyari sa presidente. So what will happen? If the president, like in the case of former President Arroyo, when she became president, the position of vice president became vacant. As president, she appointed/nominated a member of Congress, and that's what's provided for in the Constitution.
And not the SP, no? I mean, the Gingona was a sitting senator. Okay, yeah.
President can choose from amongst the members of the House and the Senate, but not all, because the minimum age for congressman is 25, the minimum age for senator is 35. The minimum age for president and vice president is 40. So he can only choose from among the 40 years old and above congressmen and the 40 years old and above senators to be the vice president, and the House and the Senate, voting separately, will confirm by a simple majority vote the choice of the president. So kung yung choice ng presidente hindi naka-majority vote, pili siya uli.
Oo.
Hanggang magka-majority vote.
Magandang paglilinaw to. Can the president, hypothetical lang to, this is all hypothetical, I'm just curious about the law. Can he appoint a mayor, a vice mayor, a cabinet secretary?
Only from Congress, guys.
Okay.
A congressman and a senator aged 40, as I said, because the requirements for vice president is the same as the other requirements. Natural-born citizen, able to read and write, registered voter, pareho na yun sa congressman at saka sa senador, except for the age. So dapat ang limitasyon nga lang nun is 40 years and above.
All right. So before we close the show, I want to ask you personally, this could be, one would say, career defining for you. I mean, you ran for president at one point, right? I remember. Yes.
Twice, Karen.
Right? Twice?
Vice.
Vice. Yes. Tinan mo yung memory ko sa tagal ko na, anchor, hindi ko na matandaan anong mga tinakbo ninyo.
Tumatanda lang talaga tayo.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. So, but this could be career defining for you as it was for Juan Ponce Enrile, even Hilario Davide. I think before we go is, what is your personal mantra as the presiding officer of this impeachment trial? What do you hope to be, hope to achieve? You know, I mean, all eyes will be on the Senate, but also on you, how you conduct yourself.
Well, probably, Karen, that's why I've been very careful. I'm about to end my term. I'm seriously thinking about not running anymore in 2028. And I would want to finish it off on a good note. But impeachment trials such as this one cuts both ways, Karen. It won't only make you, it can also break you. So, hindi naman porket may spotlight, agad-agad, bida. May nabibigyan ng spotlight na nagiging kontrabida. I won't mention names, but there were certain senators before, given their performance or absence of it or lack of it in the impeachment, that made them unelectable already in elections that ensued. So it cuts both ways, Karen. And I hope impeachment court judges would keep in mind fairness, being ensuring that it is not our job to convict nor acquit. Our job is to render justice, whatever that may mean. It may mean a conviction, it may mean an acquittal, but whatever that may be, we should render justice. So justice being simply defined as giving every man, giving every woman his or her due. Again, whatever that means. I think we should all concentrate on that. People will be pleased, some people will be pleased, some people will be happy, some people will be sad, some people will be mad. But we shouldn't care about that. What we should care about is where the evidence takes us. That is where we should go, where the evidence takes us. Nothing less, nothing more.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me today, Senate President. Escudero. Thank you. 9 o'clock. I'm overtime. But thank you. I hope you do come back on Head Start, sir.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you and good morning.